What's up, everyone? Thank y'all for joining me with Buzzing with Marlowe live, 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 and I'm saying again, live. I am joined with my good friend Courtland Tyler. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. And yourself?
I'm doing good, man. It's almost Friday. I mean, you can't complain. You can't complain. It's almost that weekend's almost here.
Just a little bit more time. A little bit more time.
A little bit more time. Oh man. So, Tyler, talk about a little bit about yourself, man.
Well, let's see. To start off, I was born and raised most of my life in Oakland, California. I moved to Grass Valley about 10, 11 years ago with my girlfriend and my family. Right
Hmm.
now, I'm currently working on finishing up my degree, looking to knock out two, which is in communications and social behavior science. And I recently start my own company thanks to one of my teachers in college,
Hmm.
which is live now. I've been at it now with my startup for about close to 3 years, going on four next. But it's been
Oh
pretty
man.
interesting to come around full circle, I would say.
Hey man, that's awesome. Talk about some of the experiences that you have had going through this stuff like that, and I know that's had to have been a tough, tough task.
Man, to tell you the truth, the entertainment business that I'm trying to get in for gaming and all that, as well as animations, is there's not a lot of diversity in that section. And I've been told that from the jump when I first started. They're like, hey, there's not a lot of black people that want to do gaming, that want their own studios. They usually work for somebody else. And I'm just like, oh, okay, that's cool. What does that have to do with me? Like how
Mm-hmm.
does
Mm-hmm.
me? And then the same thing with animations. They're like, oh, that's over across the seas in Asia and China. They're doing all that stuff. You can't do that because you don't live there. And I'm like, wow, everybody's so close minded that you're
Mm-hmm.
kind of like at yourself as a reflection, like, okay, wait. So I'm hearing from people that aren't in this field that's telling me that I can't do this because I don't have the talent to go to Asia and live there, or because there's a 2% chance that black people own a business in the gaming industry that I'm going to fail. And I'm just like, wow, that's pretty sad. When you think about it, and then you look at
Mm-hmm.
the whole spectrum. I'm like, it's really not that diverse. As I dove more into the gaming industry and the animation studios,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, they got it locked over there across the seas, and then yeah, it's predominantly an all white male CEO kind of corporation thing for gaming. But I'm like, there's studios starting up left and right, so it doesn't matter where you start. It just matters if you create
Yeah.
something great and people play it or watch it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that
That's crazy, man.
that's been
I've turned it like I
yeah.
think how you were talking about that, man. That reminds me of like my time in wrestling, and I mean, obviously, I'm not 250 pounds. I don't look like John Cena or someone like this, but damn it, I gave you matches like you would see him. I gave you matches literally to my best ability, and that's all you really can do. It doesn't matter the race, your age, or anything like that. It's a matter of how much work and how much you are willing to put that time and effort in. And has it ever made you get discouraged in ways, or does that just keep fueling you up to make yourself prove people wrong each and every day?
It filled me up, to tell you the truth, because before I even started this, like you said, you started wrestling. I started boxing before I got into this, and then after that, a good friend of mine told me about MMA, which at the time I didn't know nothing about because I was still
Mm-hmm.
boxing. So I ended up crossing over doing that, and that was a hard discipline within itself, learning all types of jiu-jitsu, judo, being choked as a boxer. Man, you used to being choked. You're like, wait a minute, hold on, he got my neck. Wait, why is my joints feeling?
Oh man, I love that. I remember when I tried to do something like that when I first started wrestling, and I had to come up with a character, and I was coming up with so many ideas. I was really wanting to be like a brawler because, like how you said, I kind of did have like a boxing kind of background, and
Right.
obviously MMA was getting to be the hottest thing going on right now, and so I'm thinking maybe I need to start learning some of that a little bit because honestly, it could help me with wrestling because I think MMA and wrestling are kind of very two similarities. Even though everybody likes to say, "Oh, one's fake and one's not," you're still hurting somebody. You're still hitting someone. It doesn't matter how well and safe you do. You're still gonna hurt that person. In the long run, they will be hurt. but I remember the hardest thing for me when I started learning was just waiting for someone to hit you, and you having to wait till it's your turn. So basically, everything comes in. It was either everything comes in twos or everything comes in threes in wrestling. So if you're in the corner, you gotta sit in that corner. 1, 2, yeah, nope. 3. Like you have to sit there and wait on it. Sometimes that was kind of hard. It made it like really difficult sometimes for me, but it was like, yeah, you can only do so much with
Oh,
it.
same thing. I think with MMA because I've had 2 fights so far, and I'd focus more so on my cardio because we're gonna go
Uh-huh.
elevated. Elevation is
Yeah.
gonna kill me. I got to make sure my cardio is on point. So I used to run a lot, and I would tell people because a lot of my friends was like, "Oh, they're making 6 figures. They had to hop in this cage, beat somebody." I'm like, "Dude, I don't think you understand." They're like, "Well, what?" I'm like, "Have you ever been hit?" No. Don't do it. Don't do
Nah.
it. I'm even in amateur brackets. Don't do it. I'm like, some amateurs have backgrounds, whether that background's karate, boxing, jujitsu.
Mm-hmm.
They
Oh yeah.
have that. They have that one thing about them that you don't want to do, and
Oh yeah.
they're like, man, I can do that. I can do that. And I remember taking one of my friends who did football. He bet me. We were in high school at the time. And he bet me. He was like, "Hey, bro, MMA don't sound that hard." I was like, "You must be crazy." I was like, "You must be out your mind." He's like, "Football is way harder." I was like, "No, no, it's not. Please stop. Don't do this to yourself." So we made a bet. He was like, "Okay, you come to football practice and training, and then I'll go to MMA practice." And I started laughing. I was like, "Bro, you don't want to do that." So I took him up on it. I was like, "Okay." We were running sprints, leg lifts, deadlifts, and all that other stuff. And I'm like, "Okay, this is natural for me. I'm doing MMA, then I'm doing it here." So we
Mm-hmm.
went to my MMA gym that night, and the Brazilians, they're crazy with their training regimen. Let's just put it
Yeah,
that
yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah.
Crazy
Oh yeah.
with their regimen. So we had to do splits in order to actually kick higher. And my
Mm-hmm.
coach, he would come behind you and kick your leg from underneath you to go further down, or he would push his heel on the back of your back as you're doing the
Yep.
split further.
Uh-huh.
And my friend just letting out the most awkwardest scream the whole gym. And everybody's looking at me like, "You brought this guy?" And I'm like, "Oh God, you're making me look bad. You're making me look
That's like
horrible."
that. That's like what in wrestling we call it a rib. That's what I remember doing the MMA class, and they were doing stuff like that, and they were like trying to pick out the new guys and see if they really could handle it. So I know exactly what you're saying with that. That's pretty funny.
After we were done, he was like, "I don't think your coach likes me." I was like, "No, he did that on purpose." He's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "He wanted to see if you actually had the mentality to be here." And he was like, "Well, how
Mhm.
did I do that?" Like, all your screaming, you gave a show.
He could have made it on YouTube.
I was like, "I never recorded this. This would have been hilarious."
You'd made some money off of
Right?
it.
From you screaming like a girl the whole time in practice.
That's great, man. That's crazy, man. So, what made you actually want to become a gamer, graphics, or what get you personified in the gaming organization from you wanting from MMA and stuff like that?
So what
Did that
happened?
kind of get you in that mindset to like, hey, you were gonna try to make an MMA type game or something like that, or is that just kind of like a
No,
phase ordeal?
I was. It was more so I was big into writing at the time, even before MMA and all that. Back in high school, before I started boxing, so I was mainly writing constantly, and my teacher really liked all the stories I wrote. And it
Hmm.
wasn't until I got to college when I started taking up communications. My communications teacher pulled me aside one day and was like, "Hey, I want you to know something." I was like, "You know what?" I'm thinking I'm failing the class or something. Like, "Oh, you want to know something?" I'm like, "Oh, oh God, I'm feeling that bad." She was like, no, no, no. She was like, you're getting A's and B's in all my classes. She was like, you need to start your own business. I was like, what? She was like, no, seriously, you need to start your own business. These stories you make, you can actually make money off of these things. Whether you're doing a novel or something, you could really make some money. And I
Wow.
was, in the beginning, I kind of shunned it off, like,
Mm-hmm.
can I really do this? And every time she would see me in class, did you make that business yet? Did you make your business yet? Did you make that company yet? And it was
Wow.
took her last class that she pulled me aside and she was like, listen, I know you probably think what I'm saying is not realistic and this and that. And to tell you the truth, I go through thousands of kids and adults every day, every semester. You are one of the few that I can actually say that I see can make it and become something big. And he's like, I don't
Wow.
my time on people that I believe are destined for better things. And the job you're working right now isn't the job you should have. You should be making
Mm-hmm.
6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures, or up in a corporate job office coming up with these stories. And then
Wow.
like that hit me hard too, because I was kind of like, well, I thought you were just saying it to be nice. But then after pulling
Mm-hmm.
this very last time, I'm like, okay, maybe she sees something I didn't see in myself. So what I did is I wrote my very first game. I'm not gonna lie, my first game is a very big game. I had actually started writing out, and the premise of it is something I would say of interest to a lot of people. When I showed it to my friends, they were like, "Dude, this can actually probably rival against World of Warcraft," And I'm like, "Oh,
Wow.
time out." I didn't even think of doing something like that. I was writing, and making up characters and abilities and stuff. They're like, no, dude, you got something solid here. You should actually go for it and actually start your own business. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
man, I keep hearing that. And I'm like, okay, but forget it. I'm gonna give it a shot. And I stopped that game. I stopped writing that game because I realized it was too big. It was too big, and I needed too big of a lump sum for that. And starting out, nobody's gonna give you a very big lump sum for a startup
Yeah.
unless you know
Yeah,
some really
exactly.
angel VC. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to make it smaller. And that's what I did. I started working on writing out a game called HZN, which is an outbreak, which is funny because it came right before the pandemic hit.
Okay.
And I started posting that on Facebook in these groups, and we started getting hits. So then I was like, okay, let me take it a step further and do Instagram and Twitter. And we started to build our fan base around HZN. And at the time, it was 30 of us all working together collectively in our spare time. And investors started reaching out saying, hey, your game looks amazing, this, that, and the third. People were asking, when is it going to be done? Like, fan base is asking how much we're going to sell it for. Are we going to put it on PlayStation? Are we going to put it on PC? So the hype was
Oh,
building up
yeah.
around it really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I had investors reaching out and stuff, I was like, well, a lot of them was like, well, how long is it going to take? I gave them about 2.5 years with 30 people paying them consistently. They're like, it's not bad. I was like, no, it's not that bad. But then a lot of them wanted us to keep going further and further and further and further. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I don't feel comfortable constantly going and having these people work in their spare time if you're just hanging over money over our heads if you're not going to, fully
Mm-hmm.
invest. That to me, that feels like you're doing it out of greed of your own self and to see how far we can
Yeah.
go and then invest. And I'm like, if that's the case, by the time we finish the game or we're close to finish to even soft launch and people are eating it up, we're not really going to need you because we're already going to have the fan base in place.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them didn't like me calling them out on that situation. So a couple of them backed
Mm-hmm.
out, and a couple of them was like, "Oh, I understand where you're coming from. Just keep us in the loop when you guys get there." And with the last investor, he was thinking of giving us $5 million for the project himself. He was going to write the
Wow.
check for us, all my teammates at the time, which was 30 of us, to do the game. But then he backed out last minute, which crushed us. It totally crushed us. Like all that hard work that we did as far as we
So
went,
so how do you
crushed
back
us.
out like last minute? What do you mean by like completely backing out last minute? Like everything was finalized or
Well,
something?
no, I sent him the paperwork of how everybody's breakdown would be, how much it would cost for everything, as far as doing the character designs, the artists, my 3D modelers, my animators, my riggers, and all that. And with him, he was more so into flipping houses, which is how he made his became rich himself. He was flipping homes, and he was putting $20 million into these homes, flipping them out, getting hundreds of millions back from that. So I knew he had money when we started talking, but I didn't want to go fully into pitching him. I wanted to actually be his friend, see what he's about, and see if he would be a good fit. And the fact that he kept actually asking when we would be done, how far along, this, that, and the third, I'm like, okay, you're coming from a background where flipping houses take you about 3 to 6 months. In the gaming world, games take anywhere from 6 months to some years. And I'm like, this is a pretty big project we're doing with 30 people. And for you constantly wanting us to keep going further, that's something I don't want to have my guys do. Because then again, like I said, that's like hanging money over our heads. Like, hopefully we get it, or hopefully, you will invest.
Right.
And then you just don't invest. And then when we do the, how the breakdown sheet of how everything's going, you're just like, oh, well, that's nice and all, but I'm just not feeling it right now. It's like, what? I didn't show you previews, the zombies. I didn't show you the gunfights. I didn't show you, our weapon swapping, our bolting, or jumping. I didn't show you a part of the city. Like, dude, come on now. We didn't been through all this, and you're just like, well, not at this time. I'm like, dude, we just spent like 6 to 8 months talking to you about this. You seem like you're fully in, and then last minute you're like, nah. It was, and then that kind of crushed my team. So the 30 people went down, 10 to 12 of us now. And at that time, I was like, well, I need to pick something else, because they went off and started their own indie studio, which I was like, that's fine, it happens. So right now we're pivoting towards doing another game, which we're like, okay, well, this game shouldn't take us that long. We're looking to drop at least 6 characters and releasing on PC. And it's a 3D platform arena shooter is what we're doing, sci-fi type. And a lot of people on the team was like, well, why aren't we going to finish HCN? I was like, well, HCN is going to take time. I was like, it's going to take time, it's going to take money, it's going to take manpower. As opposed to this game, we can do it with 10 to 12 people and put it out there and get a fan base fairly quickly, like we did with HZN. So the team's like, okay, we're going to go ahead and go with your lead. And even now, other investors are reaching out to us as we speak through LinkedIn and asking, like, oh, this looks great. You guys should do this, this, and the third. And then others are like, oh, you should just release the game and see what the fans think. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, all you guys are reaching out constantly, saying how great our work is, but then you're like, no, just keep us in the loop.
Not putting
you guys are further along. It's like, like you see that we're working on this constantly, and you see I'm constantly putting out new content every week. So it's not like we're sitting here twiddling our thumbs playing about it. We're actually wanting to do this full time.
Yeah. Oh man, that's crazy. 6 months. Oh man, gosh.
It
so
sucked.
This game that y'all were. So was this game going to be only on PC as well, or this one was going to be on major platforms?
We're looking to drop on PC, then I'm looking to drop on Xbox, PlayStation, and hopefully the Switch too.
Okay, so
I want to make sure that we
goes into that process. So how does that all basically prop out? So say like on podcasts, I just pitch myself. I record my episodes, download them to whatever, and I just pitch it out to other platforms, Spotify, Anchor, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, all these stuff. And like sometimes they carry that product and just puts it on so many more platforms. Is that kind of like how that works for y'all to up the games up a little bit, or is it a little bit more of a process?
It's a little bit more of a process. So you have to go through a whole criteria. Like Steam, you have to actually get accepted there to actually sell on the platform.
Yeah.
Same thing with Epic. You have to make sure that you go through the steps and make sure that your game actually is workable, of course, first of all, because they don't want to put it on there if it's crashed. And then there's necessary steps for each factor that you go with. Like for Microsoft, you have to send them a pitch first and foremost and see what they say. And if they're like, yeah, we're actually think that this will be interesting on our platform, then it's like, okay, send us your game or a demo or a trailer so we can look it over and send it up to the head guys. And then it's like, okay, great. We'll take it from there. Same thing with Sony and same thing with Nintendo. it's the pitching game. You got to make sure that you have everything intact. So when you go step to these bigger companies, especially as an indie, that you have
Yeah.
everything lined where they're like, okay, we're going to take you serious.
Okay. That's pretty neat. Daggone, man. I still can't get over the fact that y'all literally had almost a set deal, and then like I guess he just had that time in a month and just said, "Nah, can't do it,
Right.
fam. Can't do it." Like,
Right.
oh man, that and for you to have 30 guys going down to 10 to 12, that oh man,
That
ah,
was a deep cut. I was like, man. And then after that, I was like, that's why I pivoted. I was like, I got to do something because we still have a fan base. So I'm like,
hmm
I just quit now because now everybody's still looking at us to drop HZN, and I'm still
hmm
getting people texting me about that. Like even game developers, like, hey, so you going back to HZN? Because that was looking neat. That was looking tight. The infected you guys got were looking A1, and I'm like,
hmm
man, got to make enough. I'm like, let me make some smaller games, get some money going, get some funds coming in, then I'll get
right,
back in. So that's my focus right now. Is like, okay, we'll make this arena shooter sci-fi platformer. See what our money's looking like then. Then, if it's looking good enough to go for another small game, we're going to do that, and then build our way up back to HZN, and then recruit people as my game plan, and then drop
hmm
HZN.
okay. Dang, that's pretty neat. So like how you said you make it a smaller game or something like that. So kind of like explain that a little bit because I this is just really cool just to know like all the processes and stuff. And I mean I've seen some crappy games on Xbox as it is. So I mean I'm an Xbox man because literally I mean that's our cable box everything. So like literally Xbox is a big cherished thing in our household. We've been looking at doing a Nintendo Switch, obviously for the family and stuff. When my son with autism, that's like a really big good thing for him is with the Switch or something like that. But yeah, man, like so what's the difference from you saying like y'all are making smaller games? Is that easier to promote than compared to the big time games like how y'all were using before?
So really, the only thing I switched up because, like I said, communications helps me with marketing and all that, which has been a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is the way you go about it. So your target fan base is still the same, but you have to cherry pick on who would actually end up going.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. Like for
Yeah,
ACN,
yeah.
a lot of horror fans were into it. So that's what blew us up really quick. And a lot of people were liking the zombies and the way we were setting everything up. And the fact that we were going to do the whole Times Square in New York City downtown actually got everybody
Oh,
excited.
okay.
So they're like, oh,
Yeah.
they're like, dude, you're actually gonna. I'm like, yeah, we're already working on it. I already got my level designer and all that and stuff up. They're like, I can't wait to play this. And my team was so good that they made the blood splatter against the walls and the floor and the flames going through the blood and all that. So they were very, very talented. Just
Mhm.
starting out to now to where we switched to our game called the Oracle, which basically is a smaller game in size because we're looking to knock that out within 6 to 8 months, possibly, depending on, well, the pandemic hit us, so that pushed us
Yeah,
back,
yeah, yeah.
especially now that everybody's still working their day jobs. We were looking to knock that out pretty quickly. But once the pandemic hit, we're like, okay, well, we got to work on this like we were doing with HZN in our spare time.
Mhm.
And now we're moving along, not as fast as we were with HZN, but at a steady pace to where we're still getting people to like
It's still flowing. It's still
it.
going well, and the
Well,
fans are still intrigued by it. So that's pretty
exactly,
cool.
exactly.
So I want to know. So like, how do y'all tease the fans or something like that? So how do y'all basically promote this game to even let them know, hey, we're doing this. What do y'all think or something like that? Do y'all do like something just like and give their point of view on stuff, or do y'all just like post it out there just to see what actions that reactions that the fans give
That,
y'all?
now that's interesting. What I do personally, because I noticed that everybody has different marketing styles, I personally set them up with a question to get feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So I purposely go out there, set up a question, boom, people start commenting. And then from there, I personally go back in there and to go talk to them, which
Okay.
actually shows like, oh, this. this guy's actually not just posting
Down to
stuff.
earth. Yeah.
Mhm. So a lot of fans, like nowadays, like you said, there's a lot of crappy games coming out, and the fans are really respecting. They're respecting the fact of what I'm doing for the simple fact that we're sitting there actually having a conversation, like me and you right now. It's just through the comments, or they'll send me a message on Messenger. And I've had so
Hmm.
many people message me through that, like, hey, this looks really amazing. I can't wait till you guys drop it. And
Hmm.
then all the way to, dude, I hope your company survives. I hope you guys get the funding. I'm actually ecstatic to see what you guys are going to make in
Yeah.
the future. So we're building a loyal fan base by me doing this alone. And the podcasters have been helping too, because it's getting awareness out there. Like, hey, it's not a lot of
Hmm.
that are diverse in this industry, but I'm putting myself out there because I believe I know.
You're trying to change the game. You're
Yeah,
trying to change the game a little bit.
diversify because I see a lot of people sitting back in their shells, like, man, I really want to do this. And even my friends, they're like, bro, I'm inspired by you. You're actually out there, you're making moves. You got people that want to partner with you. You got this, you got that. And I'm like, yeah, that's all good and all, but I got to get to a point where I'm paying my guys and I can grow my business. I
Hmm.
got to get to a point
Yeah.
to where I can partner with like the clothing company that's talking about partnering with me to drop the show's clothes and the anime's clothes and the game clothes. And I'm like, hold on, you guys are hitting me from every angle now. Like, hey, I want to represent you. I want to do this. And I'm like, time out. I'm focusing on right now. I'm gonna get back to you later. Like,
Oh
let me
man, that's like that reminds me of like when I first started this podcast thing, and like we get these random messages by big time podcasters and stuff like, "Hey man, we could help you increase your viewership in the first week by 100 plays or something or more or something like that," and you're just sitting there like, "Hey man, I'm just starting out. Like,
right,
let me just get there myself." And that's
let me
one
get
thing I take really good pride on myself right now is I don't really have anybody that does this podcast with me, except I got four people that I trust with my baby. This is this is my go around. But I mean, it's just better to see it organically and just grow based off of your hard work. I just
right.
I just don't like the handouts type scenario. So
Yeah,
like that's
exactly.
one thing I do like about yours so far is just I mean that's got to be a tough gig. Like for you to be on the at the beginning and they sit there and go, "Hey man, not a lot of people don't go for this background." And it's like and I'm glad that you didn't look at it and just go, "Oh, because of my color," or something
Right.
like that. You looked at it. You looked at it as like, "Okay, we'll see if you say that in 6 months." Like literally, I like that attitude with somebody like that. That's how I've always been, man. I've been a very competitive person since I was born,
Exactly.
and like I don't like being told I can't do nothing. My background, man. I played basketball, played football. I was a professional wrestler. I played at a semi-pro level. I actually tried out for a semi-pro team. Didn't play a whole season because obviously had a kid and I just didn't feel like playing no more. But other than that, like I've always overcame every obstacle I've had in my path. And I could tell with you, you don't believe in quit. And I mean, you could honestly quit after that guy said, "Hey, I can't do it. I can't." Like 6 months of that, I would have been burned out from just pitching this to this guy nonstop. And then he goes, "Nah, man. Like literally, bye. I can't do it." And you lose 30 of your loyalty people that you've trust everything. I mean, this is your baby. This is your product. And
Hmm.
you're putting yourself out there. And for 30 guys to go down to 10 to 12, man, you could have actually just said, "I'm done. I can't do this no more. I'm done." And I'm sure there's been times where you've been just like, maybe I can do better. Maybe I can do something else. Like I've had those times. And what happened to me was I got burned out, hurt, wasn't around my family all the time, and it just made me self-destruct. And after 6 years of hard work, putting my life on the line and everything like that, it was just like, what was it worth? My health was bad. I wasn't around my family, stuff like that. Like just negative stuff would just keep arising up, and then just like I just shut down. And literally for a whole year, I didn't watch anything with wrestling or anything like that. So it's like those burnout moments. can really self-destruct in any type of way. And I gotta give you props on that. I mean, I don't really know much of you, but just hearing you from this conversation, man, it just shows like a true characteristic that you are, and a hard worker that you are. Because man, that that is tough. That is
It is.
super
That's
tough.
why I tell people, I'm like, even though that it's not diversified because you guys are like gaming and animation is owned by them, I'm like, well, the way I see it is, I'm gonna do me regardless, and I
Hmm.
want to work with the most creative people in the world, and that's been my
Right.
goal. Even my team, even the new guy that came aboard, who's great at level design, and he's now doing our projections and stuff that I've been working hand in hand with. He's like, I joined you because I can tell that you're not going to just sit on your butt and not do anything. You're actually setting up stuff. And I've been a part
Hmm.
of some of these meetings now, and he had no experience talking with investors either. So he's like, to know that you're pulling your weight and actually going above and beyond is you don't see
Yeah.
it from indies. You know, you hear them talk about, oh yeah, you know, I got an investor and this and that, and then you're like, oh, okay, cool. And then nothing falls through or nobody else is in the meeting with them. They're like, well, how do we know you're for real? I'm like, bro, I can take you to an investor if you want to talk to one. You just got to let me know. And
Yeah.
you sat in,
That's the good and the bad
you sat
about
in a couple.
indies.
Right,
That's the good and bad of it.
right.
Because I mean, professional level, yeah, you got somebody in there that does most of the work for you, and obviously you're at that top level. But indies,
Mm,
you have all the control, you have all the rights, but it's up to you to get that going. So I mean,
exactly.
gosh, that's gotta be crazy.
It's been an interesting, very interesting, I think, journey for me so far because, like you said, there's people that have crappy games, and then there's people that have crappy anime shows coming out and stuff like that. And then I get feedback. So it's funny because I'll go in there and people know when I talk because I'm friends with a lot of people on Facebook in these groups. Like I'll just
Hmm.
get my stuff put right through, and then people just go down the comments, start talking to me. And some of them know what I'm doing as far as marketing goes because a couple of them
Hmm.
know a couple about marketing strategy, and they'll come and talk to me one on one. They're like, "You're in there actually fishing for something." I was like, "How can you tell?" They're like, "The way you're wording things and the way you're actually playing,
Yeah,
cause them to
you
get."
want a reaction. Yeah.
And I was like, "You're right." I was like, "See, my marketing strategy comes from your emotions. I want to know you as a person
Hmm.
as opposed to you as buying my product. I want you to be
Hmm.
a loyalty fan as opposed to a fan right now." So
Yeah.
by doing this, I know automatically know like, okay, what games don't you like, what you're into, what you're not into. You're telling me like, oh well, you know, this show isn't as great, it's not that diverse, this isn't happening, you don't see a lot of this and that in the gaming world nowadays. And I'm just like, okay, all right. Now I know how I'm gonna be more creative to actually bring that to life. Then I go
Hmm.
back to talk with my team and they're like, holy crap, you know, I show them even some of the stuff that I talk to with people and they're like blown away. Like, dude, you're really you're really talking to like 15, 20 people in comments. I'm like, dude, I'm in there talking to about 30 right now. Yeah.
I had to buy one of the watches because literally my phone rings nonstop, and it's about either the podcast, the merch idea, or something like that. So it's like literally just so I literally can just stay in contact with somebody, and I can tell those are tough tasks. Do you do Twitch at all? I'm just getting very new into that, and it amazes me how not only how popular it is, how big people can make on this Twitch ordeal.
I haven't done Twitch myself. I've had a couple people that's done Twitch reach out to me to play my games, which was kind of cool too.
Hmm.
One he was like, once you drop your game, send it to me and let me know the information, and I'll play it on Twitch. And I'm like, what? Just randomly,
Yeah,
what? Like, hold on, I don't even know you, you know? And
yeah,
I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, that's marketing right there. And I'm like, I must be doing something
yeah,
correct if somebody randomly from Twitch doing it wants to play my games. Okay, cool. Like everything that's happened so far has been, I would say, a blessing overall because
hmm,
starting out, like you said, you're constantly hearing the negative things about people like, oh, you're not going to make it. You can't make a game like that. Oh, you can't make a show like that. You can't do this. And then I drop what I'm doing like I showed a couple people my pitch for my show that I'm doing for the anime series, and they're like, "Holy crap, dude! I can't wait to see that. Where's it dropping at?" And I'm like, these are the same people that's like, nah, I don't think your show's gonna be that great. Show them the pitch, like, I'm watch that. Or I show them the game, they're like, "Holy crap, you guys are moving." I'm like, I'm not sitting here playing around. I'm like, I'm already writing my 10th episode for this game. I mean, for this show that I'm making. I'm moving along with the game. We're just right now waiting on the characters to be modeled. Then we're going to drop them in there and start play testing with them. I'm like, I don't have time to sit there and play games with people. I'm like, these people on my team are banking on me to make something happen. Same with my family. They're waiting on me to make something to happen. So for me to sit down and waste time to be worried about one or two negative comments is like, that's cool, bro. You know, you feel that way. High five. And I'm going to go about my day.
I love the attitude because, man, that's what I tell people. Just if you want to do a business or something, man, you got to have tough skin. And with the background I've had from wrestling and stuff like that, and my father, more importantly out of anybody, my dad literally helped me to realize, hey, critiquing, it can be good and it can be bad, but what's the worst that happened? You don't show up. That's the worst. And that was the biggest thing. Like I always had to learn is like, man, people are gonna say what they want. I mean, it's a matter of what your reaction is. How are you going to take that? And I mean, it can go a lot of ways. Like literally, that's how you can tell how much of a drive on somebody because literally critiquing can break you or it can revamp you. And those are the only ways that I've always learned on critiquing. Like I could have so many people jaw off at me and say, "Hey, man, you suck," and I'm just smile at them, say, "Hey, thank you, USA." Like, like that was my match character sometimes. So it's like literally just some of this stuff is like, okay, cool.
I think people nowadays have gotten to the fact where it's like I gotta have everybody like me. It's like if you're not making enemies, you obviously ain't really built to actually own your own business because a lot of people are going to be gunning for you about
Oh
how your
Lord, yeah.
business third. And I'm like, listen, because I've had my fair share of people like randomly messing me on Messenger. Your stuff sucks. Thank you. High five. Have a good day. And then they send me a
Hey,
question mark like,
you
what?
obviously looked at it because it took you time out of your day to make a comment about my game. Like literally, regardless if that's good or bad, hey, you took the time to say something. That's how I see it.
Right. And not only that, you didn't even write in the comment section, you wrote me on Messenger about it. Like you took your time to look at not only the private message itself to say your stuff sucks. I'm like, no,
Yeah,
well,
to
I must
search
be
it.
pretty.
He might have to Google you. You never know.
I'm like, that's cool. Thank you. I feel more important to you now that it sucks.
Hey, that's crazy, man. So what was the differences from like how you said with your anime show that like you've already said you worked on your 10th episode on that. What are the differences that you've gotten with your show compared to the video game that you're also in the works of, man? That gone. You're a busy dude.
So with the video game is, I would say, takes more time because you have more steps. So you got to get
Okay.
your characters drawn. Just in the anime series, you have to have from there, instead of modeled like anime, the game characters have to be 3D models. So they have
Mm-hmm.
to be rigged, modeled, animated, after drawn. Then we have to program them. After programming them, we still have to add the sound effects to it. So when you get hit, or the visual effects too, you got to add that as well. So say somebody's shooting a fireball at you, you got to make sure that that comes off and it's not sloppy, on top of making sure it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
like one shot somebody. So you got to
Wow.
continuously what's going on in order to be like, okay, is this fair? No, this isn't fair. Is this character too overpowering? No, we got to buff somebody else up. So it's one of those things that where you're, what are characters? What if this character does this? How can he combat this character? And right now,
Uh-huh.
the outlook we're looking at that is every character that's coming out on the Oracle that we're making is going to have a different combat set of skills. So there's going to be characters that do
Okay.
better against other characters, and there's going to be some that stalemate each other. And that's what we
Okay.
want. So going into a match, like we're going to do 5v5, or we're probably going to, if the system handles more. We're going to elevate it more, but you're going to go in there with your team. You might, like, say you're playing as Inferno, which is one of our characters, which is mainly fire. You might face off against somebody that we call the barricade, which basically puts up little barricading traps to hide behind him, like blockades and all that to hide behind. So while you're sitting at airballs, he's just sitting there like tagging you, like, yeah, that's cool, bro. Throw fireballs at me. I don't really care. I'm behind the wall. And then
This is like, it gives me like that
there's a
Call of Duty meets Pokemon vibe. Like kind of like different type
right.
of Pokemon, so like fire, water, stuff like that. It kind of gives me like that type of vibe with like a Call of Duty meets what's that game that everybody's losing their minds over nowadays? My son plays it. I totally forgot what it's called.
Night, or is
I
it
guess it's all the ones that build up and stuff. I can't remember what it's called. They got toys all over it and everything. I've never really played it. Can't remember
okay.
what it's
I'm
called right now.
Fall Guys, maybe?
Huh?
Nah. Fall Guys, maybe?
No, I
Where's a
don't
whole
know. I
bunch of
don't
people
know.
running like a gun. But yeah, that I
Yeah,
would say
I
is the main
think it
difference.
is.
As opposed to the anime, the difference is now it's finding somebody to do the characters. From there, you still have to shade them, color them. You got to get them animated. You got to get the background scenes painted and drawn. You got to get the inside of the buildings drawn out so the animation looks nice and right. You got to have
Hmm.
people that are comfortable in situations of your writing too on top of that. So
Hmm.
since my game is more so sci-fi type of ordeal, people are like, okay, I like that. And then my show is more so like a modern day mafia type ordeal where it's like blood, gore,
Okay.
action, stuff like that.
So kind of like
So they're totally
a
two
realer
completely different.
look. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm,
like that.
mm-hmm. That really, and I'm putting my MC in certain situations that calls him to duty right now. And the people that I let read my episodes, they're like, I'm really liking it. Like your MC's like very not neutral, but he's more so wants to do stuff, but he just doesn't know how to go about it. And that's where
So
they're
kind of
like, it's
relatable.
interesting. Exactly. Like, like say for instance, there's a situation that breaks out between you and your friends going at it, but you're the quiet one. And that's kind of like his ordeal. He's more so, he's very smart, but he's not confrontational. So he'll
Hmm.
tell them to stop and stuff like that, but not get in the way of it per se.
Hmm.
Try to make a different gesture to go and get it out of the way so they're not thinking about it.
Okay. So he was like the
So that's how I
opportunist
set
type.
him. Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. He's more so
Okay.
constantly
That's
thinking of
pretty cool,
how,
man.
yeah, more so how he can make things better or not put people in certain situations to where he doesn't have to force his own hand, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So like what kind of mindset do you get in to write these shows and stuff like that? Like do you kind of like do you want in the future to also do a show to where it could cross into the video game that you also make as the same thing so that can make your whole ordeal, or is it two
I,
differentiates?
I was thinking about doing that something later on, depending on the game type we do and the show I'm writing. Because as of right now, I'm focusing just on those two projects. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of
Absolutely. Yeah,
work.
yeah.
You know, coming up with backstories for the game characters and then the abilities, and then figuring out how crit's going to work and all that for my programmers and all that. And then for the show, I'm looking at, okay, the backstory for my guy and his friends and figuring out how I
Hmm.
want that to play out too. So it all depends. Like right now, I've written so many characters for the game, The Oracle, right now, where I'm like sitting on them right now because I got to wait for the team to model them and all that. And from there, we're
Oh
like,
wow.
okay, who are we going to drop after we drop the game? After we drop 6 characters, there'll be 6 playable characters. We're like, okay, who are we going to drop for DLC? So then I'm like, well, I'm going to have to go back through my notes, see how they actually add up. And then we'll figure out, okay, we're going to go drop this guy and this guy, or this guy and this girl, or this AI machine and this robot.
Hmm.
And as opposed to the show, it's like, okay, my first season, I already know who's going to be in that. So all I gotta do is write background stories for them, their personalities and traits, and what their goals are to actually work in the first season for the anime.
Right.
So it's not as complicated because I'm already writing anyway. And since I'm big into writing, really not that hard to do, I would say.
Okay.
It's just
That's
finding that time balance.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask you. So like, so how much time are you putting in, let's say like per day ordeal? So like how you said you're focused on these two projects, just these two
Mhm.
projects. Have you accidentally like when you're supposed to be writing for your show, write some of your video game characters on the pamphlet a little bit just because you're so thinking about it, stuff like that?
Actually, no. What I usually do is I write stuff for the game when I'm at work on my lunch break for 30 minutes. So I'll come up with a
Okay.
character, write down their name, figure out what kind of abilities they're going to do. Then I pitch it to my team, and they're like, yay or nay. Or they're like, we could probably incorporate that, but then we'll save them for like a later season. And I
Mm-hmm.
usually write the show like 2, 3 in the morning because I'm up either
Oh
researching or
wow.
networking or talking to somebody. So
Yeah, yeah,
on that time, I'm up writing for the show, and then the show is about 20 to 22 pages episode.
yeah.
So I'm usually writing like 5 episodes, try to knock out 5 episodes a night. So I can actually, 5 pages per episode a night. So then that way I can stay and maintain moving forward.
Okay. So you kind of like drinking one of these and just writing away.
As soon as the kids drop, I'm like, y'all sleep, let's get it.
Hey man,
And what's
I
more,
will say this. Also, we could do a little plug in this. Also, guys, Rep Sports, sporting goods, Rep supplements, Raz Energy. Uh, I drink one at least once a day. Kind of keep me going, keep me flowing. You can also use the promo code AP2420, get you 10% off your first energy drink. So, Rep Sports. Nice little plug. But other than that, man, like they actually do good plugs for video gamers and stuff like that, up and coming gamer. I mean, just it's crazy just to see what all people support going into the gaming world now, and it's really cool just to see. I remember I used to believe there was only pre-workout for people that just go to work out and stuff like that. They actually do now make it for gamers, and like it just blows my mind. I mean, I give y'all props. I can't just look at a screen and play a video game all day. I used to do that when I was little and stuff like that. Now sometimes it's just like an hour is too much playing games for me nowadays. It's just because it's just like you have to literally just be that focused in that game and be intrigued in it. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, I let my kids more enjoy it nowadays and stuff like that. So I mean, it's just really cool to see the processes and just see how real the games look nowadays. Is that kind of been like a challenge for y'all as well? Because y'all are kind of like competing with every game that is out there in the world now. Like, is there?
I think when it comes to that, like, because I've had other indie people reach out to me too, because they'll see that we're getting hits too. Like one of my indie buddies, he's making a game right now, and he's like, "Dude, how do you set up your marketing? Like, you're getting hits in all these." Like, he sees me getting hits in all these Facebook groups, and I'm like, "There's a lot of different marketing styles." So I gave him a couple of pointers on what he should do and how he should go about it. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
research, and research, bro. I'm like, it depends on what you're going for. I'm like, are you going for more so an emotional type of marketing strategy? Are you going more so
Mm-hmm.
that's out flashy in your face? Are you going for more so subtle? Are you going for more so a call of action type? I'm like, you have
Mm-hmm.
to figure out what type of marketing you want to go for,
Right.
and then see what other competitors do to get their name out there to get people to remember them, and then take that route. Now, not do exactly what they're doing, but cherry pick from them and see how you can actually
Mm-hmm.
incorporate your own marketing strategy. And since he's done that, he hit me and he was excited because he's like, dude, I got up to 200 people finally on my my game page. Like what you said worked. And I'm like, yeah. Like, yeah.
He's like, man, I could start a class of this.
I'm like, what's the interesting part? And I've talked to my other buddy who's a big marketing guy too. He has his own marketing agency. We've had a couple of talks, and I'm like, what's interesting I found out is a lot of people over analyze marketing.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not that hard to market yourself if you know what you're doing and how you want to go about it. The problem is, what do you want your fans to remember about you?
Mm-hmm.
That's
You
the
can
intro.
always have a hit, but the question is, can you keep going? And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's the downfall for so many people. Yeah, they do really good on one hit, and then all of a sudden, that's it. Like Halo, I mean, that's a great example. I mean,
Right.
gosh dang, that game's had like what, eight different type of visuals of Halo, and it's just like, I think they're growing another one pretty soon. Like it's just, and you only get those on Xbox. Like those are those main marquee ones, and it's crazy just to see how realer and more different they make those games. I mean, obviously, for me, seeing that are wearing Jaguars, whatever, I'm a sports guy. So when you
Mm-hmm.
watch these NFL Madden games and stuff like that, there's not that much that's different except the roster and maybe a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more realization somewhat. So it's like, gosh dang, like people really paying $50 to $60 every season just to get a newer update roster.
It's crazy. It's really crazy when you think of it that way. Like my friend who plays all the 2Ks, and he had me dying. He's like, bro, you can actually see the sweat glistening off his forehead. And I started dying. Like you're not serious, really? Really? He's like, dude, you don't understand. This is realistic as it gets. He's like, I feel like I'm actually at the game. I'm like, you're controlling the character. It's not that deep, bro. It's not that deep. I'm like, beads falling off the guy's forehead. I'm done. I'm done with you. And
That
see,
sounds like a Gatorade commercial.
the funny part is you're laughing, but I have the message on Messenger, and I just like I can't deal with you today. I can't. I can't. This is a conversation for another day, bro.
Oh man, that's crazy. I mean, that's kind of like how you would say if you saw somebody like a chef and they're a professional chef and they go to like one of your favorite restaurants, like one of your favorite barbecue joints, and they look at it and go, that's okay. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
like, what? That's my favorite place. Like, what do you mean it's okay? And they're like, I can make better. And it's just like,
Right.
and I kind of like see that perspective with you on some of those. You're like, oh man, you can see the sweat glisten. I'm like, man, I'm trying to make a shooting game. I ain't worried about no damn water coming off of somebody's face. Like,
Well, I don't care if I don't even know the dude's name. I ain't even watched the NBA in a while. So who's he? What? His sweat face and forehead. Like, bro, if you don't go take yourself and go sit down somewhere and play your 2K and leave me alone.
that is crazy. I remember when 2K first came out, and it was only like I think it was PlayStation 2, and
Mm-hmm.
like they had two different ones. They had Live and NBA 2K. 2K looks so fake. Oh my gosh, the characters look like box figures. They look like the what's that game? I think it's Minesweep or something like that, where they look like a bunch of cubes. And I'm sitting there, I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, why? And then when you get to watch when you play NBA Live, it looked like you were watching the actual game. And I'm just
Right.
like, why is this so different? And then you realize, oh, ESPN didn't put that much money into these products. And it's crazy now that Live just started back and they're not as good. And 2K changed it all up and makes them look like they're damn near regular people playing a video game.
Mm-hmm. It is.
It's just crazy to see the evolution that we are in now. It's mind boggling sometimes.
That's why I think a lot of people, even the big studios, like right now, like I check them out as well. I think they're not doing too well because they're not willing to switch it up. And even
Mm-hmm.
talking with the like, there's so many Gears of War now. There's so many Halos coming out. There's so many of this. They're bringing back old school games, which they're trying to, make money off of that. They're like, what's really sad is nobody's going against the grain and trying to make something different. They're sticking to their guns and just making the same thing, replicated and putting in new
It's like
skin
the
on.
movie industry, ain't it?
Mm-hmm. And what's funny is they'll see me and I'll post my stuff and they're like, I'm gonna go check bro out. They go check me out. What's this? Oh, he's making an arena type shooter sci-fi game. Okay, what's this about? Oh, characters ain't even gonna have the same abilities. Wait a minute, time out. Hold on. An anti-gravity bomb. Let's check that out. Bruh's levitating in the air and getting shot. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna mess with him.
You got
Then the
that
same with my
creativity, and like those are the big major keys. Like I tell people all the time, like, man, what makes you different from anybody else out there? And I remember when I was talking to you when we were talking about setting this thing up, I was just like, oh, I gotta get bro on here. Like this sounds pretty freaking sweet, and I can just tell how passionate you are on this ordeal. Like this is your baby. Like you're not making millions of dollars on this yet, but hopefully in the near future this works for you. And like
right,
it's crazy. I mean
right,
that's
right.
got to be a lot of time consuming too, man. Daggone.
Especially the fans, man. Like the fans have been behind me even throughout the switch up with the games and all that. And they're like, "Remember when you make it to come back in the Facebook group chat and talk to us and this and that and the third? Be cocky as you want to be." I was like, I'm not even that type of guy. First of all, first of all, I'm not cocky at all. I'm confident, but I'm not cocky. I'm like,
Hmm.
if I make it, I'm gonna still be in these groups. I'm like, this is where my fan base is. This is where
Hmm.
everybody is, and I see talent throughout these groups too, and that's how I go about things. And I don't think a lot of people do that either. Like they don't search Facebook groups, talking to people, getting feedback. And what I've noticed is a lot of game devs only keep their game dev groups. They don't venture out.
Hmm.
And I feel
Hmm.
like that too because I'm putting myself out there.
Yeah.
And that people are noticing, like, hey, who is this guy? Let me go check it out.
It's
And
like a game of fishing, man. You're just throwing your pole out there and seeing if you're gonna get a bite or something like that. And it goes so many ways. Like how you just said about Facebook groups, man. When I started this podcast, I was literally just expecting from friends, family, and stuff like that for my Facebook, and which that did great and everything. But then I started doing Facebook groups and stuff, and I just realized like, wow, like there's so many different types of podcasts. And I mean, obviously, me starting around the COVID era, just the beginning of it, and it's just like there was nothing else around. There was nothing else that gives you proper knowledge of anything that really is not sounding like a damn robot nowadays. Like
uh,
it's and a great example, these celebrities. You see them on the Today Show, the late night shows, and stuff like that. But they got their own podcast because guess what? They're not having a mouthpiece in their mouth. They don't
mhm.
have that robotic audio box going off in the back of their head. They can say exactly what they want and stuff like that. And it's just amazing, man. It's amazing what just podcasts can do for someone nowadays. And it's just like man, I mean, honestly, podcast is literally probably one of the best outlets I know right now. And for you to get your brand and stuff out there, like how you said you go on a couple podcasts every other now and then, that just that it grows. People will look at it, stuff like that. And like how you said with the Facebook groups, I'm just like, God dang, man, how many different Facebook groups there is around here? Like, it's just, oh my gosh, I can't even remember. Like, usually when I publish my episode, I do maybe like four or five because I'm just sitting there like I can't even figure out the name of all of these. Like, I'll just push it out like that and just be done with it. And it's like when you got to list all like, oh, they're like, oh yeah, you got to make sure you talk about all the platforms and stuff you're on. And I looked at actually some of the platforms I was on, like, man, I ain't gonna be able to remember all that on the top of my head when I'm recording. Like I just say iHeartRadio and wherever else you listen to your platforms. Like I can't figure anything else out. You're not offended them, you just don't remember.
Right. I know exactly what you're saying because I go and I share my stuff in a lot of Facebook groups, and I'll be like sitting there, I'm like, man, that's 68 groups I went through. Whoa,
Hmm.
okay. And then what the interesting part is some people in the groups, they go and share it too. And I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
cool. Thank you. And
And
I
it
go and give them,
amazes just like the location they're in. Like I remember I did it one time and a guy from Africa was sharing my stuff. And we actually connected and he was writing I think it was a horror book. And I think it was like Dracula meets Daredevil type scenario what he was trying to write. And needless to say, his book went on very good sales and stuff like that. And now he's made it really big. Not saying he came off of my podcast and then made it big, but I'm just saying like just doing stuff like that and getting himself out there, it got him what he was looking at. And it's like it's literally only takes that one time and
Mhm.
maybe that one time can help you.
That's true. That's what I think people don't realize too is putting yourself out there. You got to do that, especially if you want to do anything in the world. You have to put yourself out there and be okay with being criticized, critiqued, put down, but you can't
Hmm.
let it, especially if you're passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah, I agree with you. Courtland, I hate to do this, man, but we are almost running out of time. Is there anything you want to finish up on? Plugs, anything like that, man? Your social media accounts. We will be posting all the links to all your social media accounts and everything on the bottom of this episode. But man, I had a blast doing this, and I definitely would love to have you on here once again.
Yeah, just let me know when and when you're free, and we can definitely follow up with everything. Thank you for
Yep.
having me on your
Now I know
podcast.
your time now. I know the time differences now.
Yeah, me too. Now that I'm like, I got to keep a track of everybody across the globe too. Keep in mind, my team's across the globe, Sweden,
Okay.
Asia, all that. So I'm constantly like, what time does
Wow.
he sleep? Oh, okay, he's 11 hours ahead of me. I got to leave him alone until the morning, or I got to wait till 2 in the morning. I'm like, hey, how's this character coming along? He's like, oh, it's doing good, Courtland. He's like, isn't it like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning your time? I'm like, yeah, but I have to make sure
We
you.
need to know.
I need to know what's going on. And he just started laughing. He was like, you don't see people that dedicated. And I'm like, that's why you got me.
I love it. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I remember like when I did an episode with a guy in Germany, and we did the recording, I think at 1 o'clock my time, but he was literally just waking up because it was like, I think it was like 6 or 7 his time the next day. And it's just like, oh man. Like I had to realize when I started giving out info and everybody's like, hey, I want to come on your podcast. I'm like, hold up, what time zone you in? Because I got to figure that out first. Because I would tell them one time, like how it was like 8 o'clock your time. I'm sitting there thinking like, 8 my time. It's really early for you. You might still be at work.
Right, exactly. That's why I was like, oh man, I was like 8 o'clock. Okay, that's fine. I could do that. I could do that. I'm good.
I mean, when you said your time, I was like, all right, yeah, three hours ahead. All right, I got you. I got
Yeah,
you.
we could do 8 my time. 8 your time. I'm like, I don't know what time that is. Hold on. I gotta plug that in after everybody else. Get this time. All right, that's
Oh
5 me.
man.
All right, all right.
Word of advice, anybody. If you do a podcast or you do any type of interviews, make sure you know the time differences. That's a big, big key.
Definitely. Don't
But
want you
man,
on this.
Courtland, I appreciate doing this day, man. This was so fun. But like I said, do you want to do any plugs or anything, bud?
I just want to shout out our fans that's been following us so far. I want to thank you for having me on the podcast too for the interview. And for everybody that wants to start their own business or looking to start their own business, the first thing you got to do, I would say, is start. Don't wait. Start and go for your passions. Stay creative, stay unique, stay you, and realize that you're more than capable of actually coming out of anything, not unscathed, but able to come out of anything, any dark hour. Stay hopeful.
And hey, that's awesome. That's great. Great word of advice and stuff like that. People don't realize like these little things that we say can really make somebody go very far in life. And those are some things that people need to learn, especially with this generation nowadays. You need to learn what a tough skin is. But Courtland, I appreciate you doing this, man. Thank everybody for watching tonight. Hope we didn't bore y'all, and we'll see y'all later down the road. Later.
Later.